So Irene's here and we're so excited because she had a session yesterday with Allison. So we're going to talk all about that. But I do want to take a moment just to say how I know Irene. I've known her for over 11 years, and she's the person who helped me figure out how I want to do she does my hair, but she's the one who helped me figure out how to make it reflect who I am at this point in my life. And she's also someone that's become a dear friend, and we share many of our observations and we are seeking together. So she is the person who introduced me to Stevie, and that was a catalyst for both Karen and Allison to get astrology readings with Stevie. And so I just love the kind of connector that Irene is, and I'm excited for you all to meet her too. So Irene, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are in your life right now.
I live in Chicago and I am 37. I've been doing hair for 17 years. I have a 6-year-old son who is like the love of my life. I don't know, I get so emotional when I talk about Miles. I got divorced a couple years ago and I have my own studio currently.
One other question before we talk about the session. I'd love to hear from you about your seeker's journey.
The birth of my son really kind of changed so much of everything. I immediately went into like nature mama mode, but also at the same time that I had him, we had moved into our home, and the year and a half after, him and we both got extremely sick. I have SIRS.
What is SIRS?
It is chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So what it is very inflammation of your body, and the symptoms range, it's like 23 different symptoms. So between like having him and dealing with my health, it was just me, and and also my marriage was obviously not going the way I wanted it to be. I was in probably my loneliest point. I just remember telling Robyn all the time, like she would walk in and I'm like, I'm sorry, you're here to get your hair done, but I'm gonna cry now. I would tell her, I feel like my light isn't even dimming, it's just gone. I've been kind of taking care of myself since I was a kid.
I was gonna bring it up, but
yeah.
You can talk about that.
Yeah. Like I didn't have my father was never around. My mom.
And then you're from the Philippines.
From the Philippines, lived there, moved here when I was 8. You think you're so alone in life and you're seeking out others. And really, like when you go deep within and light your own light, you're never alone. I know my purpose in life is to help people and be there for them. But it was interesting that I never really actually, I think, took the time to really help my own self. I still really love my clients and doing hair and working behind the chair, but there's something else calling me. I just feel like there's like more there for me to do.
There is so much validation that came out.
Yeah, so let's talk about the session. Yeah. Allison, do you want to talk about how you even prepare, how you get going with your session, how it works?
Yeah, so before I see any clients, I always meditate over my book of clients for the day. And then I really just kind of go over how I work and how I see and my sweet spots and what the client should expect to hear and how it should be interactive.
Let's dive in.
They show me that you're kind of the center of family. So I don't want to say you somehow made yourself the matriarch, right?
I've always been just that role.
So let's talk about your consciousness, right? Your consciousness is what you're very mindful of on a day-to-day basis. So I feel like there's been a series of warnings for you that have come up when it comes to health and wellness. Spirit showed me you eat clean. You're very mindful and try to eat very clean.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I try.
So, but listen, all of us have a little bit of extra COVID pounds, but unfortunately that can come from wanting to eat from a comfort level, right? Not because we're not being mindful.
Oh
right?
Yeah, I'm super, super mindful of.
Thank you. That's what they show me. They show me you eating clean. So then we go down to the subconscious level, and this subconscious level is not necessarily something we're very mindful of. It's almost like when we blink our eyes and our heart beats, we don't tell it to do something, right? It's just kind of back there doing it on its own. And so it talked about boredom, disgust, aversion, saturation, irritating relationships, setbacks, and new meetings. You're super patient. So they talked about that as a subconscious level, which I thought was really sweet because, yours comes out and it's like family and happiness, but then you have this in the background, meaning you don't necessarily want to address it as a conscious level. Right? Then we fall into the fear. The fear talks about initiative, skill, ability, astuteness, diplomacy, spirit of initiative, refusal of any suggestion, prejudice, or beginning new enterprise. So I call this like you're being self-conscious of yourself. What I loved about it was the spirit of initiative is you're constantly trying to come up with like beginning a new enterprise of some kind, beginning a new or taking control of something. And then you fall into this fear and it's like a trap for you. I talked about severity of judgment. So you're constantly working on trying to not judge others, right? The severity of that. Your goal is to constantly look past judgment. And it talks a lot about spirituality, wisdom, intuition. So you have this intuition piece, this healing piece of you that you really haven't been using. You're really trying to dive much deeper in love with things and trying to forgive a lot of old things. And we're going to go into that as far as how it impacts your health. Do you understand all of this? It's okay to cry. And we're going to go into your sacral chakra and your womb area as well, okay? Because that's very alive and very wanting to kind of move forward. Then we talk about how to overcome all this. It was the swords. And the swords are our intellect and our mind. You tend to overthink a little bit and get caught up in your own head. And this stops you, right? So they're kind of calling you out on this. So that was a lot of spiritual consciousness stuff we have going on. You understood it. I tapped into you and I really instantly started to feel like my sacral and my uterus area. Okay, the womb. So I feel like I've either experienced the loss of a baby or I'm wanting to have a baby. Okay. Can you understand that?
I've not had a loss. It doesn't seem like it's pertaining into my life right now.
That's okay. That's so okay.
Giving birth to something else that isn't a physical baby. Like my work is.
Okay. So here's the thing. When it comes to the birth of something new, the birth of something new could mean a child or the new beginnings that we just spoke about. Yes? Okay. But they also talk of loss of that child, loss of that baby. Okay. They're telling you before, I just said it, you have to get over that by getting over this loss. Okay. So you keep trying to build something. And I feel like I go forward and then I fall back and then I go forward and then I fall back. Okay. So spirit just showed it to me in the sacral area, but they also talk about eggs. Listen, it's okay. You're not understanding it right now. You just have to take the information.
Oh,
right. I don't know if they also showed me eggs, frozen of eggs. I feel like you can have a child if that's what you truly wanted to do. Okay. So I'm not feeling any issues there. You're pertaining it to the role. They're bringing me right to your womb.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're not wanting to have a baby, then I suggest you button up. Hold on, I take a drink. My cup.
I'm not saying no to it. It just isn't, I guess, in the present moment, if that makes sense.
1,000%, and that's okay.
There is always a part of me that's like, what if later? And I'm open to that if that was where it takes me.
Okay, so I'm just being mindful that portion of your body seems very alive. Okay, it is very ready.
Oh geez. Okay.
So they want to talk about when I went into your energy, I actually felt like I ached a little bit all over. Okay. My hands and my feet kind of hurt. And I felt like I almost had like an autoimmune or like an arthritis or some type of like inflammation. Can you understand this?
Yeah, I have SIRS. I have chronic inflammatory response syndrome.
Okay, because I felt like I was just like couldn't bend my fingers and I couldn't bend anything. I did ask them. It was interesting because I wrote ALS instead of the acronyms, which thank God it's not ALS.
Yeah.
And then I wrote asthma too. So I feel like I have allergies or
it's asthma, induced and.
Okay.
I had asthma when I was young, and then it went away, and then mine is from mold and toxins, and so I got from a lot of mold exposure. I got really sick, and
okay.
I recently have battled another home that had mold, which is why I'm in my new place in January. So my last 3 places have, for some reason, had hidden mold.
Well, and I think when we're so susceptible to it in the body, it's just such a trigger. So they actually did show me that you have flare-ups from stress as well.
Oh yeah, probably.
So the minute you go into stress, so I asked how severe this was, and they told me it was not life-threatening.
It's an awful pain.
Obviously. Right. It can be debilitating, but they did, because when I wrote ALS and then I scratched it out, I was like, oh my gosh, is this like?
Yeah, no, yeah. It's more like it just takes me down it's almost like walking pneumonia, but for like months or, Because
the flare up they showed me was pretty intense. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Your diet is really saving you from all of this.
Okay. Yeah.
Your diet is like your medicine. So a few things also came up. They talked about heart rest. You don't forget the lungs and the heart are all within the same chakra area. So the minute you have, an inflammation flare up from stress or anything else, it does impact that whole chakra area where we start to feel kind of down on ourselves, self-conscious, right? We go backwards. I always say we go to the dark side, right? We start to go backwards. It talks about perfection in the present situation and perfection of human love relationship.
Okay.
So human love and relationship. You're constantly trying to marry like love and a connectedness to anybody that you allow to have in your life. You truly like to connect on a different level to people. And when you feel a slight disconnect, again, it's all that impacting of that heart and the lung area. And it can just be so tremendous for you.
Yeah.
So what they're trying to say to you is you have to learn your triggers on what triggers your body to go into this stress mode, right? Where it's like overbuilding histamine in the body and, it's just, it goes on overload.
Yeah.
It truly does. So grateful we're having a conversation where there's nothing more serious going on, even though it is a very serious condition that you're battling against.
The son has it as well.
Oh, okay. I want to go back again to what Spirit was saying before, which is that you were spiritually evolving. You are having this awakening process. And when that happens, the body shifts with it, right? So the mind, body, spirit is all connected. And those three levels, you may be having some weird dreams. You may be feeling moments where your body's vibrating or you're having like weird vibrations to the body. Yeah. I call that downloads and upgrades.
Sometimes I just feel like super frenetic, like
yes. Because your body doesn't know what to do with the energy upgrade yet, right? And because you're still in quarantine, you're not able to really necessarily release the energy.
I recently heard something of like 3D, 4D, 5D. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so frenetic because I think I'm circling through all the Ds. And sometimes it's like in minutes,
Well, I just did a small little podcast or a little series for Robyn's talking about 3D to 4D.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. I feel like I hit 40 super hard.
Yes, because what's happening is, and that's the heart chakra.
Freaking, it was like impacting me in such like a scary way because it was, it brought up a lot of just like.
If you think about it, 3D, we're three-dimensional beings, right? That third chakra, we're all trying to ascend to the fourth chakra, which is the heart, right? Coming from a place of love. You are constantly trying to elevate to that next level. That's the heart and the lungs, right? You're trying to come from 4D. So your body is responding to this awakening. It's vibrationally responding. So you could have days where you feel like, oh my God, when I saw all the swords on the one card, that's your intellect, your mind, right? We get ahead of ourselves. Am I overthinking things? Am I, do I sound crazy, right? All of these things, but yet we feel it. So we want to express it, but then we're like, you're in that cusp where you're starting to break out more spiritually of what's going on.
Yeah.
So do you have any questions about your son? Any more questions about him? He does love video games. I'm going to say.
Yes, that's his thing. I fought for a while, and I was like, well, it's not like you're also then on top of it watching some other.
He's actually really good at the games.
He's so good to the point where I don't want to be proud, but I'm so proud.
I know, because he figures it out. Your son's a really bright boy, and I'm not just saying that. They show academically as well. They show him as like a puzzle solver, right? So if it's something, he wants to figure stuff out. He wants to figure out how things work. I really don't see any challenges. So now I'm going to open the floor to ask any questions that you might be having in regards to your health, your wellness, your thought patterns.
I guess in terms of the health thing, it's like I actually feel overall like in such a good place only because I had such a bad flare up last fall and winter. Besides the loss of money, the quarantine honestly has been like
a blessing.
Yes. Like I'm having some really bad anxiety going back to work. So, and I love what I do.
Yeah. And that's what people are struggling with. So they also show me 3 days. I don't know what 3 days means. I don't know if you go back for 3 days a week or something for 3 days. They show me 3 days.
I have been wanting to scale back from behind the chair for a while now because I'm like, it just takes me away from home. And this is way before quarantine, but being home, I was like, I really like this.
The new venture, the new beginning.
Yes.
So I have to tell you, I know you told me with my human mind, you said that you did hair, you were a hairdresser, right? I feel like you are really kind of moving into an area where you start to look at things that you can box as a product. Okay, so you start looking at products and way to kind of work from home as well as go in and be face-to-face so you can do the transition. So they keep showing me 3 days. I really feel like I go in for 3 days.
Well, actually, I'm telling everyone that I'm only going to do 3 days now.
You need to stay in your seat of your power, right? You have created such a clean, healthy, emotionally stable environment for you and your son, right? And you did that on purpose. That was on a conscious level, right? So you need to maintain that space. You're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to go back to this crazy time where I'm trying to make dinner and go to the food store and this and that. No.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, it's like I finally, for years, I've been wanting to add something. And once again, it's like, I love what I do. I love the client interaction. I mean, that's like the best part of my job, but it has taken a toll in draining me because I absorb so much energy. And it's like with this quarantine, it's like I didn't realize how much of a toll it was actually taking on my body and my mind. And I think that's what the part I'm getting kind of anxious about, like having to just jump right back into that, because my fear is that I'll go back, and because the money's good, I'm going to be like, oh, let's forget about those other things that are just potential.
I don't think you will this time.
I don't think I will this time either. I feel really actually good. So when you said 3 days, I'm crying only because I almost feel like validated in that power, knowing I can make it this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the quarantine has given me all the, like, actually like time to make the things I've been manifesting happen.
And it gave you the strength, right?
Yeah.
To say, okay, my intuitions were correct.
Yeah.
And that's why they talked about too before
I just started selling products online so I can be home more.
Yes, they show me new products and it expands and it does get bigger, but you can't be behind a chair and sell the products and be a mother. It's just impossible. It's right to your mind. You're going to start to get out of control. I always call it like the runaway train, right? We get in our head and we're like, we can't.
I think that's what the anxiousness is really from. It's because I need more time to cultivate these other dreams of mine. Like I want to start this e-commerce business. Like I have like a thing called the Light Collective that is my name to that, my business. And it's to bring in everybody so that like there's a place for beauty, wellness, healing. It's all that the community space. And I always thought it was a brick and mortar. And all of a sudden 2 weeks ago, I was like, I can do this online. I don't have to wait.
And that's why they called you out on the fact that you kind of dip in and then you pull out and then you dip in and they're like, what is she waiting for? But just so you know, like spirit and the universe will only go at your pace, right? They cannot violate your free will. They will not force you to do it. They will constantly show you signs and they're going to constantly encourage you. I'm a sign, right? This meeting had to happen.
Yes.
I had to relate to you or validate to you 3 days. I had to show you new products. I had to show you you're going to be doing this new beginning, this new empire, because you just needed to hear it as a validation. Now you'll push. The more your physical being is well, the more your thought pattern is well. And the more your thought pattern is well, the more your physical being.
I feel like I was in such a brain fog for a while there,
Yeah. Listen, I don't want you to think that when I came on the call that I didn't take your health seriously, but they just showed me that you were in such a good space.
Oh, currently, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they just didn't show me like, oh my gosh, brace yourself for the call, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, no. I mean, if you talk to me in like December, it would be a different conversation for sure.
So you have to work a little bit more on your spirituality. So they're talking about incorporating some meditation and deep breath work for you. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of flipped off that. I was like on that and then,
add journaling into that as well. So what I like to do, if I showed you my journal, my writing is kind of like sideways, right? Because I'll meditate, but then I just start writing. I don't open my eyes. So the writing's all over the place because you come out of meditation, you're like, like, oh, I'm going to remember that. And you wake up and you're like, I don't remember that. It's like a dream, right? So they're wanting you to even just draw or doodle and get some of these creative ideas out of.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never even thought of that.
It's so fun. You should really try it because I really think some creative stuff's going to come out for you. They want you to do some like, I call it the take 5, where you just kind of take a deep breath in for a count of 5, hold it for 5, and then let it out for 5. Some people call it like box breathing.
Oh, I do the 4, 7, 8.
Perfect.
But I've never done, I'll do the 5.
Yeah. Because honestly, it's scientifically impossible to think about anything else if you're counting, right? You can only do one thing at a time. So it's great when you're having a panic attack as well, or you're really feeling anxious, just go back to your breath. It's really important for you. It's all about the breath. It's all about the lungs. It's all about this inflammation, right? We've got to keep it under control. Yeah. I think you're going to be just fine.
I guess I want to dive a little bit deeper to stuff with my, his name's Mitch, my boyfriend.
He likes to be where it's safe.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't see him like moving too far from where it is that's safe.
No.
I think the two of you are just really utilizing each other right now for so much healing from the past.
I feel that.
Yeah. So he's good. Any other questions before we wrap up?
I start to, like wake up in these other parts, and then I start doing bad habits again. And I'm like, why does it happen?
Because we're happy. Sometimes when we're happy, we just kind of go with the flow. We feel good. I'll eat that. I feel so good. I'll eat that pizza.
And it's like, go to bed.
But you're like, I know I don't have to get up. So then you've given yourself all this permission, right? So I'm going to end with just the spirit animal for the day, right? Ooh, oh my gosh, this is one of my favorites. It's the octopus. The octopus travel across earth and over sea to securely embrace your dream. We're used to taking care of everybody, but you've got to focus on taking care of yourself. Everybody else is fine.
Yeah.
Even your son, he's like, okay, I'm going to go play video. Like everybody's fine.
Totally.
So you've got to focus on like what really works for you and how you want to change your life.
I know Irene, and everything. I knew everything Allison was talking about when I was listening.
And it was so interesting because I don't know Irene listening. So this background that we just went through was so helpful because now I feel like I know more. But just as a viewer of someone who didn't know you, I was amazed how many things that Allison was able to pick up on. And Robyn and I talk about this all the time, that sometimes you almost want somebody sitting next to you to be like, did you hear that? Because I could sense from you there was a lot coming, and you were like, wow, there were so many moments that I could see you really understanding what she was saying. So what were some of the big ones? What were the ones that stood out for you?
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? This was actually later, but it's like the thing that kind of resonates with me because it was one of those like, oh man, you really know. She said, 3 days keeps coming to me. 3 days.
Oh my God. I wrote it down. I know.
It has been years of me telling Robyn, I don't know how to I don't know how to scale my work back to be more present with my son and my own self, and also give myself like time, like real time to be able to like creatively come up with this other business idea. And as quarantine kept happening, I was like, I don't want to go back to that because I realized like I don't really need much. It was the first time I think being off, it was like, I don't need these material things. I really don't need anything. Like I was so happy just being at home with Mitch and Miles, and we were like bonding so much and cohabitating in this like super lovely way, and making dinners together and being home every night for dinner instead of at the salon till 10 p.m.
It was like we got to that discussion at the end. What do you do with that kind of information now?
So during quarantine, I actually decided to pick up another hair care line, Money. It stands for Modern Natural. I had not felt this passionate in something hair related in a really long time. Fear kept coming up, because that's what it tends to do in my life, which Allison kept touching base on. And Stevie has mentioned it. Jenna mentions it. And for Allison to just kind of validate it, I mean, the connection from the three of you were kind of a little terrifying. Because I was like, why are you all saying that?
That's the whole thing. It's so validating. That is like my mission is for people to have that experience. And it's like, if you can't hear that, something's wrong with you.
Yeah. But as we've said before, it's like spirit can only tap on your shoulder before
so many times before the whole thing
crashes over. It's like it's getting really loud now. At one point, she was like, "You made your product, or you're working with something, and you're holding." I'm like, it was like, And I mean, someone could easily just be like, "Oh yeah, well that's a hairstylist," but it was just the fact that she said "made." And no joke, just 2 days prior, I had made my first like hair product. More bigger thing is actually that exactly about a year and a half ago, I hosted a vision board workshop at my house with just like 10 women. So my girlfriend who does Reiki, Amber, and I were like, it was like this epiphany when they all left, like, this is what I want to do with my life. Mm-hmm. Like just bring women together, because there's always this part of them that feels like unheard, unseen, and not validated, and seeking something they don't even know what they're seeking for. I even know what to call it. The name is the Light Collective. It made me cry when I heard you talking about how that's your motto. My motto is to be the light and to let your own light shine. Even the name, I was like, the Light Collective. I'm like, oh, but I mean, I'm questioning it. Like, I think I always struggle with my ego. I know that's kind of one of my life's work. Like every time I have this amazing idea, I immediately poo-poo on myself. Like, oh, who are you to think like you can get away with a name like that? Like
the worthiness.
The worthiness. Thank you. I was like, what? That's exactly what it is. During quarantine, I was like, what am I waiting for? I actually have decided, and this is the first time Robyn will hear about it, it's going to be launched online.
Good.
So,
Good.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about even the womb.
Oh my gosh. I was like, I know we're going to talk about this. It's so bananas.
You don't have to.
That's me.
Okay.
TMI, TLC, all the things. And I had always thought that I wanted 2 kids. I was an only child for a very long time. My sister came when I was 14. But because of the age difference, she's like, I call her like my hybrid. It's like she's half sister, half daughter to me. And so for my son, I remember having moms being like, I always wanted 2. I want them to have each other. And because of just differences and the marriage and everything else, it was like, that was not going to happen. You know, I kind of like mourned it and I put it away. I think I would even say until today, like I just feel so fulfilled with Miles. And I know that like, no matter what happens, like I just don't have that like, oh, like this resentment of not having another kind of thing.
But it did feel to me a lot that what Allison was saying is that it could be potentially a business.
I don't know. See, I didn't get that. I actually questioned her on that. And she was like,
I think you're meant to have another child. Yeah. I think it will be the business too. I think there's a lot of symbolism with that.
I think it'll happen after TLC is where my intuitions.
Yeah. Because this is like, it's like your next focus will be this.
But also in the last year, I've started to share with some, oh my God, I'm going to get so emotional. Ever since I was young, I've always had this fantasy of adopting a little girl from the Philippines.
Oh.
Anyway, so before I even talked to Allison, I had a reading or I had a session with Jenna, like, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, kind of early in the quarantine. And she was like, is there something in your womb? She was like she didn't say the word womb though. She was like
talking about your sacral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but she was even saying like your uterus. She's like, and then she even at one point went, are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? Maybe you're pregnant. And then she almost like stopped herself and laughed, but she was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that in case you're not pregnant. Like I'm on birth control and I'm, as of what I know, I'm not pregnant at all. Yeah, but the fact that she said that, it was like my instinct always goes back to that like little girl.
Love that.
Maybe she's like, I think it's actually business. And then so she started actually going down that route. I didn't ask because I think I felt so overwhelmed. I was like, can you still see all that? Even if it's like an adopted baby?
Yeah, we talked egg and then possibly being frozen or off to the side, right? So they could have been somebody else's egg, right? That they were trying to show us.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I
couldn't let it go. There was just something there that I just couldn't let go. That whole sacral area was just lit up for me when I got on the phone with you. If I can just touch on, as women, we hold a lot of power in that sacral area, right? We have the ability to create life in this area. And so sometimes we can hold a lot of trauma as well as beautiful experiences in the uterus. It's like a cup, right? And we can just fill it with things that maybe are not necessary in our lives or things that we aspire to do. I feel like you get to the sacral chakra and there's a lot of work that just has to be done there, right? That's our sense of security. And I think that security goes way back from like when you were a child. And you talk about how, you're always taking care of everybody, but that also came up in your reading that you were like the matriarch, even for your mother, right? You're always making sure everybody's taken care of before you take care of yourself. So you literally ran yourself into the ground while you were rising everybody else up. And now that you're in quarantine, you've given yourself permission to stop and heal. So I just thought that was interesting as well.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation.
Allison said, you are the glue. You are the matriarch of your family, which I know that so through and through. That came right up the top of the reading. I was floored.
Oh, I know. When she said that, I was like, well, you can't pick that up from following me on.
I mean, that's like, and knowing Irene, that's so central to who she is.
Well, and also she picked up right away, I think, the respiratory, right? You were talking about the lungs, you were talking about the inflammation. So that for me was like, that was like right off the bat.
Yes.
Totally.
And I thought what was so interesting, Allison, is that you picked up on the fact that she had SIRS. Am I saying it right? SIRS?
Yeah, SIRS.
And then you talked about how she's taking care of it, and which is true. Like she actually, and you brought up that so much of it has to do with her diet, which she has changed over the last few years. You hit that on the head because
you actually said that her diet is saving her.
Yes.
Also helping your son. Well, again, not knowing you, I mean, it's an amazing story that you've had. It shows you're very courageous, that when you listen to that intuition and you follow it, you do amazing things. And I think you will with the business. I think it was clear at the end of the session what Allison was saying about go for it. Go for this business idea that you have.
Well, and she pulled the octopus.
Oh my gosh. And to end it with that, I was like, see, I knew I had 3 more things I can do. Octopus is 8, right?
Can you explain that, Allison?
Yeah. So, I said, so let's give you a spirit animal today. Let's see what it is. And when I flipped it over, I was like, you've got to be kidding me, because it's one of my spirit animals. It was the octopus. And how I connect to the octopus, which I didn't realize how the message was so for her as well, right? Was the octopus has many legs and it likes to go out and kind of grab different things. It loves to multitask, right? I'm going to do a little bit of this and I'm going to grab a little bit of that. And then when it wants to, it can kind of just sneak into small spaces and kind of back away from things and hide out to kind of go into self-preservation mode, right? But it also has ink too. So don't let it ink you is really the kicker there, right? I have ink, don't make me use it. So I thought it was so interesting that she got the octopus. We talked about that you were receiving downloads and upgrades, right? So the body has to go into self-preservation mode in order to adapt to how that new energy feels. It's almost like when a snake sheds its skin, it has new skin, it gets bigger, it grows, it expands, it can move quicker. And you're realizing that it's not a depressive state, right? It's something that has to take place.
Yeah. This is just coming to me right now, which you brought it up. Stevie has brought it up, using different words, but the same thing. They're like, you're actually a healer. And Stevie's always telling me that I'm like psychic. And I used to be like, what? Because I always just thought of psychic as I can see this thing or something's talking to my ear, and that's not me. And Jenna was the one who made the connection. She's like, you're actually, is it clairsentient when you feel?
The gift to feel. Yep.
The gift to feel.
I was just thinking as you were talking, I bet you are also healing those people that you're working with every day in a way that you don't even realize. Like you were saying earlier.
Definitely.
I always say that. I'm like, I said it from the beginning. I'm like, I don't just do hair. And my favorite part about it is actually my connection with people. When Allison brought up the word worth, it's really striking a chord because I never knew. I always have sometimes a hard time like associating a word to how I feel.
Yeah. Can I touch on the fact that, when you keep talking about your sense of worth, I think all of us go through a transformation phase where we feel like we're an imposter, right? We're kind of living this life and we're like, am I worthy to be that special? Am I worthy to have that gift, right? And we're not imposters. We're moving towards our authenticity of what we can do and the power that we hold. Mm-hmm. We all have light. We are the light. We have the power. And so for you to find your sense of worthiness, now you're standing in it. You're like, I'm not an imposter. I never was an imposter.
Yes.
Once you stand in the worthiness, it's why you've changed.
Well, and it's like you've even found that in your relationship, in your current relationship.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. My work is as crazy as it's ever been. And it's the most unpredictable. I mean, it's like, I don't know when I'm going back to work. I don't know when I'm going to, but yet every other aspect of my life has never been in so much harmony. And it's not even just like, she's like, there's so much harmony in your house. She's like, between you and Mitch, and also like Mitch and Miles. And she's like, he's safe and comfortable and actually really happy with where he's at, which is all true.
You glow when you talk about him. Even.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's the first time where I just really feel like seen by someone and encouraged. Like he actually seeks out safety and that I'm safe for him. I'm safety for him. We're both healing our paths with each other because we feel safe for once. Yeah. I brought that all up to him. And then I was kind of saving the womb part because I was like, oh,
well, I don't know. You have to.
So anyway, yeah, you touched base on all that stuff and it was really mind-blowing to me.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we?
No, absolutely not. I just was so grateful getting on the call with her that it wasn't a more serious condition or a more serious something that we were going to have a really deep conversation about. She knows how to heal herself. She's on the journey. She's got this under control. Like we're on our way here. This is just, we need a little push, right? So she just needed some validation and a little push that she was moving in the right direction. And I just think Spirit has an amazing way of kind of delivering that validation right when we need it. It just needed validity.
Thank you so much. And I got that from you. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you for letting me be who I am.
I'm just so grateful that you were so open and willing to share.
Yeah.
And Allison, I mean, everything that you covered is what she needed to hear.
And it shows the breadth of care you can give to someone, which I love. You know, you can
Yes.
do so many different things for people and really pick up on all aspects of the mind, body, spirit work that they need. So
yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I'm like, in an hour, you covered like my health, my past, my future, my present, my relationship with my son, my relationship with, it was like my business. Like, I was like, how did she do that all in an hour?
I'm so happy that everybody on this call and in this conversation was able to connect, because you're all really just special, incredible people. And
Thank you.
Oh, love you.
you guys, so much fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.